Hello, you're listening to A Voice in Central Kentucky. I'm your host, Melanie Williams. I recently attended the Sheltowee Arts and Crafts Show here in Somerset, Kentucky. I had the opportunity to meet with two of our local word turners. The first is Mr. B. Pope, and he is local to Somerset, and he and his wife had retired. He was originally from Barberville and had an extensive career in the Navy and came back home to Central Kentucky to retire.
I'll pick up a piece of lumber or board, whatever, it's got some kind of maybe some history with it. Just like this one. That piece of wood was cut in 1861.
How do you know it was cut in
Because it got
1861?
out of a log house, and that was the date on the log house.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And this one was Norfolk Island. It grows in the south. It won't grow up here. And this coloring is a mold that starts on it. Mother Nature works if you'll let her. And that's where you get all the pretty colors.
You know what shape you're going to carve something.
I'll put it up there, and now that's kind of whatever feels right to do it. So
How do you finish your pieces?
that's clear lacquer.
So what kind of tools do you use to create your work?
Well, you can see it right here. And it's all freehand. Nothing is
On the lathe.
on the lathe, yes.
Oh, okay. It's interesting you get this many different shapes out of the lathe.
It's how you use it. I see I put this on it for a lid, and then I got beading tools, and I'll bead that make the beads on here.
Oh, okay.
And you hope you don't chip one out, then you have to start over. This one is Honda and Rosewood from Belize.
Oh, wow.
And you put your rings on this, and jewelry in there. Yeah.
Oh, neat. Okay.
This one was made right there. That was made right there, and I sell them as wedding presents. They can take the ceremonial drink, and then that represents the marriage.
Right.
Only way to get it off is break it. Pieces like this. See how the color is on there?
Yeah.
That's Norfolk Island pine. I get it wet. It's it won't grow up here. It's too cold. But then I put it in a plastic bag and forget about it about 6 months. Let it start to mold and all these colors come in. Because it's normally that color. Now see this fold, it was smooth around here. All wood is gonna warp. That's a known fact. You turn this thick and let it cure. Then you put it back over on the lathe and turn it down and make it thin and straight again. And it'll stay pretty much.
So how should somebody take care of their wooden bowls?
Just wash them like a dishwashing detergent, just not much, really, and dry them and maybe put some oil on.
So everything is kind of custom, huh?
Well,
as far as your shapes.
My wife comes down and says, "What are you going to do with that?" I said, "They hadn't told me yet." So she doesn't buy that, but, I spent 20 years in the Navy. We playing with jet fighter planes. And we've traveled all over the world, basically.
You and your wife?
Yeah.
So what ports were you in?
Well, Norfolk, San Diego, Sicily, Jacksonville, you name it, I've been there.
Did you retire from the Navy?
Yes, I did.
Oh, okay. So how many years did you serve?
20.
Thank
20
you
years.
for your service, sir.
Oh, I loved it. But,
what was your favorite part about being in the service?
Playing fast planes. I used to shoot competition in there in the military. So
Interesting.
So
what made you come back to Kentucky?
We were born and raised in Kentucky. Barberville.
Barberville.
Yeah, both of us.
Nice.
And in fact, we went to high school together. And so we started dating 70 years ago.
Oh, gosh. How many years have you been married?
66.
66 years. Yeah. Wow, that's amazing.
But we lived in Sicily. We got to live over there.
How many years were you in Italy?
2 years.
Oh, no. So. And where did you retire from? Where were you?
I was in San Diego.
San Diego.
Yeah. Top Gun. That's where Top Gun was at, and that was my last airplane. Was Top Gun, the F-14 Tomcat.
Oh, interesting. And what did you do on the planes?
I was maintenance work electrician
Okay.
on the airplanes. Helicopters for some, you change around, whatever where you're stationed,
I see.
But it was fun. I loved it.
Well, what did you like the most about coming back and doing woodworking? What made you want to do woodworking?
Well, I started woodworking because I didn't have no money. We had a mobile home, we sold it, then bought a house. Went down to get furniture. I said, I can't afford this. So I said, I'll build it. Had a Navy hobby shop now with a shop as big as a A&R.
Yeah, a hanger.
With every kind of woodworking thing and somebody to help me. And I started building furniture.
Oh my goodness.
And then I just had a custom furniture for years. And then I started this.
Here in Kentucky, you had custom furniture?
Well, not so much here, but in Jacksonville and North Carolina.
Oh, okay. And now you're just doing the smaller pieces?
Well, this is what I do, yeah.
Well, thank you.
I'm playing now. Yeah, but
well, I really enjoyed talking to you today. Thank
well,
you for talking to us.
Yeah.
The second woodcrafter that we were able to meet with was Mr. Mark Abner. He is local to Monticello, Kentucky. He had mentioned to us that he had worked with the forestry division and that he had planted over 100,000 trees during his tenure there. And it was really important to him that he had a sustainable craft. So join us now while we talk to him about some of the pieces that he makes. Well, tell me a little bit about the hardwoods.
Okay, the wood in this is called tuya. It comes from northern Africa in Morocco. It's really, when you're working it, it has a wonderful scent to it. And this is from root burl.
Oh, okay.
And it lets you
What's
take.
a burl?
Burl is where, like in roots, and where there's weird twists and shapes to the tree, where the grain grows and interacts and moves in and out, and causes these kind of patterns instead of just the straight grain you see in the main body of the trees. Grew in deep woods where there wasn't a lot of light, so they were slow growing. You end up with a tighter grain, a more complex grain, and because of the slow growth, you can see a lot of the history of the wood. I've done pieces where I cut into the wood, I cut into the tree, and you can look at the grain of the tree, and you can see where there have been forest fires. There's charring in the lines where that was the bark, the outside of the tree at the time, and it survived it and went forward. You can see twists and cracks where there have been storms and tornadoes come through and damaged the tree, but it survived. And there's a story in there. And
Do you have a piece that has some grain that they can see what that means?
This piece, this is olive wood from Bethlehem. There's a fellow I know in Jerusalem. His family has raised olives outside Bethlehem for 500 years. And when they prune the trees, he saves all the cutoffs. And he's a wood turner himself, but what he doesn't use, he shares and sells to those of us in the wood turning groups.
So what makes that wood interesting?
It's the connection to Bethlehem.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very slow growing. So again, the grain is very pronounced. It has a very aromatic smell when you're working it. You can't smell that once it's finished and sealed, but working it is very interesting. And if your spiritual following is Christianity, it gives you a direct physical piece of that history you can hold in your hands. And what I call these particular pieces, I call these blessing bowls. The idea is you set it at a table at family events, special dinners. You invite your ancestors to share the meal with the family and leave blessings in the bowl that at the end of the meal you share with the family.
So you put these on a lathe to turn them?
I turn them on a lathe.
Okay, and you do these all by hand?
Yes.
So what are some of the other pieces that you have?
A variety of things. This piece here is an aromatherapy necklace. There's wicking inside that you put essential oil, depending on what you're trying to, the scent you like, or the medicinal and spiritual aspects to that. And I also do the inhalers directly. Instead of a necklace that you would wear, you can directly draw this into your mouth. Nothing goes in your lungs. The essence is absorbed by the mucous membrane, and then you blow it out your nose, so nothing in your lungs. It's valuable for people who are working to quit smoking, because 2/3 of the habit is having something in your hand and puffing on it. This lets you have both of those, but there's no nicotine, there's no smoke. You pick the essential oil that suits your needs. You hold it in your mouth and blow it out your nose. You get the essence without any harm to your lungs or body. So it can be a very useful tool.
And how many years have you been doing woodworking?
15 or 16 that I've been doing the wood turning. That's my grandkids here. And a bit of my verse that I've written here, and this describes my bowls as well. You know, what I was talking earlier about the grain of the wood going and showing things that happened, and it's, you know, bowls full of stories and bowls full of cherish.
Yeah.
Because you can have a bowl. I've got I didn't bring them for this show, but I've got some bowls that came out of logs that are 300 years old. That tree lived through the American Revolution, and you can count the grains and see this is was 1776. You know, this was the War of 1812, and
Because you know when the log
you
was
know when the
cut.
log was cut, and so you know when it was harvested. You can count the grains back and see when it came through the ground. You know, 1685, I think. So observed, witnessed by that tree.
So you can literally hold history in your hands.
Yeah, right. There's a bowl full of stories. It's the history of the United States formation in that bowl.
This concludes our interview with Mr. Pope and with Mr. Abner. We appreciate the time that they spent with us today and thank them for allowing us to interview them. Hopefully, we can now appreciate a little bit more about the woodworking craft and understand a little bit more about what it takes to create the pieces of art that you see.